Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It's Monday, August 11th, 2025. I am Dr. Congo Debinga, filling in for Roland Martin today. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Donald Trump has done something no president has ever done before, putting D.C.'s police force under federal control and sending in 800 National Guard troops. The mayor calls Trump's actions unsettling and unprecedented. We'll talk with Markus Batchelor from People for the American Way about what this means for democracy and civil rights in the nation's capital. Meanwhile, for a second straight week, more than 50 Texas House Democrats remain out of state, blocking Republicans from reaching the quorum needed to push through a controversial mid-decade redistricting plan. We'll bring you the latest on this high-stakes political standoff and what it means for voting rights in Texas. And in a sweeping move affecting hundreds of thousands of workers, the Department of Veterans Affairs has terminated union contracts for over 400,000 employees. We'll break down which unions are impacted and what this means for VA staff nationwide. It's time to bring the funk right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on Go Roll Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Twice impeached and criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump is seizing control of Washington, D.C.'s police force and deploying 800 National Guard troops, declaring it Liberation Day and vowing to take our capital back. Trump used an emergency power in the D.C. Home Rule Act to temporarily put local police under federal command, saying the city's facing a public safety crisis. That's despite crime hitting a 30-year low last year.
And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
Meanwhile, the D.C. Police Union, representing over 3,000 officers, has voiced support for the administration's actions despite recent declines in crime. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser called Trump's move unsettling and unprecedented, stating, given some of the past rhetoric, we are not totally surprised.
We know, however, as most have heard from the president's press conference, that he has prerogatives in D.C. unlike anywhere else in the country, including his authority given by our home rule charter to require the mayor, to require me to supply services of the Metropolitan Police Department. And he also has control and the ability to deploy the National Guard. But let me be clear, as our home rule charter is also clear, and the president's executive order restates. Chief Pamela Smith is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and its 3,100 members work under her direction. The Home Rule Charter requires the mayor to provide the services of MPD during special conditions of an emergency, and we will follow the law. Though there's a question about the subjectivity of that declaration. In fact, the chief has already provided a high-level liaison and point of contact with the federal government and made those initial contacts. The executive order is also clear that the president has delegated his authority to make requests of us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. I have reached out to Attorney General Bondi and hope to schedule a meeting soon.
Joining us now to discuss this escalation is Markus Batchelor from People for the American Way. Markus, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What is your initial take to what has transpired today in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I'm outraged by it. I think, and all of America should be outraged by it. What we saw is the president rant and rave and use the authority, test the authority of his power to take control over a city where over 90% of the people didn't vote for him or his values 3 times in a row. I think it is DC now, but everyone should be concerned that it will be their communities tomorrow. This president has demonstrated both in a hyper-local sense here in DC, but also nationally that he's willing to test the limits of his authority to demonstrate and to just make a point. But when he takes authority over a local police department, that puts people's real lives in line. And what we've seen is that the president has always made people in the District of Columbia less safe, whether you think about him sicking troops on peaceful protesters in 2020, whether you think about him sicking a mob on the United States Capitol in our neighborhoods in 2021, when you think about him pardoning all those people convicted under local and federal law for those crimes when he re-entered the White House earlier this year, Donald Trump has only made people in DC less safe, and all residents in DC are very concerned about this order today.
Now, Markus, you talked about all residents. When I look at this order, when I look at what he's talking about, and when I hear the language, it doesn't seem like this is something that he's interested in for all D.C. residents. He talks about tourists who are coming in. He's talking about people who work in the White House and the federal government, where the rest of us, I lived in Southeast for 15 years, where the rest of us, many of us who are black, it seems like we're the ones that they're trying to protect us from, but it doesn't seem like there's real support or care for the rest of the citizens of D.C. How do you see that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think you caught the red flag in this whole press conference that he is so embarrassed about these crime rates that he's pulling out of thin air or from years and years ago in terms of DC's crime spike. He's, weaving all of these hyperbolic narratives about how he has to get it under control as a symbol for the nation. But again, he is projecting because unfortunately he has to see the manifestation of all his lack of investment, of all his lack of work on things like public safety, on things like housing, on things like crime, the things that bother him on his drive to his golf course, but don't bother him enough to do anything about. So what he wants to do is lock up the people that he says are a problem for his eyesight. What he wants to do is displace the unhoused people who are disturbing his view on his way to his golf course instead of solving those problems, but that has real material impact for the people here in the District of Columbia.
Well, Markus, when you talk about the homeless part and kind of weaving into what you were just talking about, he says that the homeless people, the unhoused people, need to leave D.C. Last time I checked, if you're unhoused, you don't have a place to go. When you talk about the work that you're doing with People for the American Way, you're having conversations about what needs to be happening for the unhoused people, as well as the services that need to be applied to young people within the city so that they are not involved in crime in the first place, which doesn't seem to be something that Trump is cared about. Am I correct?
Absolutely not. But if we think that Trump actually cares about public safety in any sense, but especially public safety in the District of Columbia, I think we're just feeding into that lie. Donald Trump could care less about public safety in the District of Columbia. This is exclusively about power. This is demonstrating to his base, to the rest of the country, that he's willing to again test the limits of his power. And it's also a test for us. It's a test on local autonomy, right? The mayor is right, an unprecedented attack on local home rule in the District of Columbia. And it's a test of his limits and how he can replicate this across the country. The District of Columbia wasn't the only city he mentioned in today's press conference. When the press asked him if he's willing to do more, he said, yeah, Chicago and Oakland and Baltimore. I think we should all point out that all of those cities are also led by Black mayors as well. So this is a power grab on Black power across the country, and this should be a warning sign, and this is an opening salvo in what I think is going to be a national campaign.
Before I bring in the panel, one other thing I want to talk about, I'm really paying attention, as I mentioned, to the language. I hear him say people being mugged, raped, shot, and killed, people living in bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor. He talked about armed gangs running through the city. It almost made it sound like it was like, Mogadishu, back in the 80s or something to that effect. And when I was listening to another commentator earlier today, they were talking about how the language he was using is reminiscent of when he was talking about the Central Park Five. And it seems like he's just bringing that rhetoric back up to try to foment more anger from people to justify what he's doing today.
Yeah, I mean, it's old racist rhetoric. Trump might be a new character in this long line of history, but he's using very old rhetoric. He knows how to dehumanize Black people. He knows how to dehumanize poor people and unhoused people so that he can, or immigrants, so that he can do what he wants. And he knows how to typecast certain types of people and certain types of leaders, which is why you also see him only call Black leaders in Congress and in big cities low IQ. He knows what that means, right? How that signals to people about Black people, and I think that we should be very concerned about that. And in a plurality Black city where he doesn't just have a little bit of fame and the ability to buy a newspaper, right? In the sense of the Central Park Five, he is now the president of the United States with over 12 federal agencies at his disposal, the DC National Guard and the military beyond that. What can he do, right? He destroyed 5 lives with a little bit of fame in a newspaper. What can he do to hundreds of thousands of Black lives as president of the United States?
I want to bring in my panel. I have Kelly Bethea, JD Communications Strategist out of Washington, D.C., as well as Joy Cheney, founder of JOI Strategies, also out of Washington, D.C. So we're all living it here right about now. Kelly, your question for Markus.
Oh, a question. I had a comment. But I guess considering that we are in a black space right now, being the four of us and most of us who are watching this programming, considering that we did all that we could do, right? We voted, we campaigned, we've marched, we've protested, we've boycotted, we've screamed, we've silenced, we have done all we can do. What else, right? What more can we do? Because frankly, I'm still in this resting period, right? Because when you have exhausted all that you can do, what else is there for us who are in the same boat?
Yeah, well, we've got to build the biggest boat possible and get as many people in it so that we can take turns rowing. I think the president's strategy in this second term, and they've been, really plain about it, is to flood the zone, to flood you with as much controversy, with as many problems as possible, so that we do feel overwhelmed by it. But I think what today's announcement shows is that we have to remain vigilant, that we have to remain active in these fights, because who runs our local police department? We never thought, right, in a million years that we would have to fight the president of the United States for control over public safety. And again, that's DC's fight today, but he is on a rampage. And so we've got to make sure as many people as possible can fight, that we take our breaks when we need to. But Donald Trump is clearly counting on our silence, is counting on us getting tired enough to be complicit. And we see some of our leaders in DC doing that, saying, all right, well, we're just gonna, figure it out. No, this is an affront to democracy. This is a threat to public safety, and we've got to treat it like that. And as many people as possible have to get in that fight.
Joy, your question.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm not even going to pretend with the question here because I know we're going to engage you in a conversation. Here's the deal. If you are a funder out there, this is the time. We need you to get off your ass, whatever has been happening, your planning meetings, your long time thinking. It's time to get boots on the ground, money on the ground, and in the hands of the people who can use it, nonprofit organizations who are struggling right now. We need that. We need you to fund People for the American Way and others as well. I'm just going to start there because I think that's a conversation that needs to be had if we want to really fight back. We also have to make sure lawyers are tooled in this moment. If you are a lawyer, you're at a law firm, you ought to be beating down the door of the District of Columbia, trying to say, what can we do to be a part of the effort to defend this city against what will be encroachments on home rule? To be clear, please, this is the question. Can you just remind everyone what the home rule laws say about how long Donald Trump has for this emergency designation, because it's not indefinite. And I think what the mayor was saying today was we're going to hold him to it.
That's right. So, yeah, Section 470 of the Home Rule Act, which gave 50 years ago the residents of the District of Columbia local home rule, says that the president on a temporary basis can federalize the Metropolitan and Police Department if the president declares an emergency. Now, the president has cobbled together some excuse for what he deems as an emergency, and to your point, has exercised that very temporary authority. He had 48 hours to notify congressional leadership that he was doing it, which I think he said he was done today. And then he only has a 30-day window for that emergency to be enacted before he needs further permission from Congress. So this is temporary. Right. Obviously, there's a lot of damage you can do in 30 days. But to your point, there's a second stage of this fight, and we need to make sure that we're urging members of Congress to come back to Washington ready to hold a check on the president so that he doesn't extend this power indefinitely and doesn't inflict further damage on the residents of the district.
Now, Kelly, I know when I came to you and asked what your question was for Marcus, but you also stated that you had a comment, so I wanted to make sure you got that comment in before we went to our break. Please, let us know what's on your mind.
The comment is that this is all bullshit. That's the comment. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I hate saying it so succinctly, but it really is, because I go back to just the previous administration being Biden, when, if I recall correctly, his granddaughter got robbed in DC. And he had, if he was going to, exercise full nepotism, had every right to declare an emergency for his grandbaby and bring in the National Guard and track down the monster that hurt his baby. Did not do it. Right? Did not do it. So when you talk.
No, go ahead, Kelly. Finish your point. Then we'll go to a break. We're going to come back with the discussion as well afterwards. So go ahead. Finish up your point.
It's just like, I'm tired. It's the conflation of bullshit that this administration has to do in order for it to do what it wants to do. It is extremely frustrating. And frankly, all of this could have been avoided if you had voted for the black lady.
No, I hear you. This is a discussion that we're just getting started, you all. We're going to go to a quick break and come right back with more of this conversation. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. The United States is the most dangerous place for a woman to give birth among all industrialized nations on the planet. Think about that for a second. That's not all. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in this country during childbirth than white women.
These healthcare systems are inherently racist. There are a lot of white supremacist ideas and mythologies around black women, black women's bodies, even black people, that we experience painless, right?
Activist, organizer, and fearless freedom fighter Monifa Akinwole Bandele from Moms Rising joins us and tells us this shocking phenomenon, like so much else, is rooted in unadulterated racism. And that's just one of her fights. Monifa Bandele on the next Black Table here on the Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change,
diaspora wars. The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to blackness and black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this black sphere that we exist in.
Only on The Other Side of Change on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Proud.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder Disney Plus. And I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
Trump has sent in federal officers to Washington, D.C., even though crime has been dropping for the past 2 years. The Metropolitan Police Department shows violent crime in Washington, D.C. is down 26% so far in 2025 compared to this time last year. Homicides are down compared to this time last year. Robberies, burglaries, even sex abuse cases are way down, and some by half. Last year, violent crime dropped an even bigger 35%. So the numbers are clear. Violence is going down. But Trump's out here saying crime isn't really falling, even talking about some quote-unquote phony numbers investigation. Marcus, I'm coming back to this phony numbers investigation because I'm thinking about Bureau of Labor Statistics, labor statistics, and it seems like his mindset of don't bring me no bad news. If it's something that he doesn't like, he's going to make up numbers to justify what he wants to do. And it seems like working to occupy D.C. after he tried it in Los Angeles is the latest example of this.
Absolutely. And the president has a long history of coming after DC. Again, since his first term, he is, repeated rhetoric that the federal government should take over DC. He said it on the campaign trail last year, and we should, again, take his word for what he says he wants to do. He will find whatever workaround he can, again, just to prove his point. And now he's found this opportunity, obviously, to also distract the rest of the country from the looming Epstein scandal that he's going through. But, it also is a good opportunity for him to, quote unquote, flex his muscle. And yeah, if he can do it standing on top of some fake numbers about how Washington, D.C. is the worst city on the planet, he's willing to lie lie and obfuscate to do that. But to your point, the numbers don't lie. We are not a perfect city, but local leadership has worked very hard, and local leaders on the ground have worked very hard to wrap our arms around folks struggling in our community, to get them in housing, to get folks off the streets, to put young people into productive programming. And I think he's only disrupting the work that we've been doing over the last several years.
And Joy, I want to come back to you. I know you had a comment to make, but I also want you to speak on the optics of the fact of them turning over so much of this authority to Pam Bondi and taking away the responsibilities and authority of the Black women leadership here in Washington, D.C. I want to get your thoughts on that in addition to what you were about to speak on earlier.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. Let's be clear. The mayor has been clear. They have not taken away her authority. They've layered her, to be sure. But the Metropolitan Police Department is still in charge of the police here. The reason these things are so important is that we have to continue to follow the law. There are certain things DC is required to comply with. There are other things that they are not required to comply with. We don't want to give Trump more credit, more power than he's already taking. So it's really important to hold that, because if he violates it, she will have some rights to sue. So we want to make sure we're keeping the line straight. And of course, the attorney for the District of Columbia is already looking at this. So I just think that when you see her muted response, it's because she's saying, I'm going to follow the law and you better follow the law too. Her chief is still in control of their department. What the federal government is doing is different, and they'll have to partner together. I think that's just important, a small tweak. The other thing is that, we have to continue to rely on the numbers. The fact of the matter is crime is down in DC, but that does not mean it's perfect. It is not perfect anywhere. What this is Donald Trump trying to make a play so that he can take over not just DC, but other cities as well. Obviously, it's easier here in DC because it's not a state, which I thought the mayor was very right in saying, if you are a Democrat in Congress who believes that DC, who's grieving what's happening to DC right now, you have no one to blame but yourself. Because when you had an opportunity to prioritize DC statehood, you did not do it. One thing we can say for Donald Trump, he uses every opportunity at his disposal. He has always wanted to take over DC. He's using a moment where he needs a distraction to do it. That's what this is, about.
Right.
We don't always use the moments when we have them. That's the real problem here. But I will wrap up just to say that with respect to this, we're going to have to be mindful of him as soon as that 30-day mark we have to make sure he's going to Congress. If he doesn't do it, the longer he does it, the more it invalidates the notion that there is an emergency. We have to continue to ask, what is he looking for? The mayor said that today. What is the president looking for in order to declare that this is no longer an emergency? We know it's BS, but we have to play it a little longer. And while we are waiting, if there are additional federal resources that we can use to make DC safe for the people who live here, use it. Use the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, Markus, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I for sure think that there is some practical application on the ground for cooler heads for some of the leaders in our city who have to manage this relationship. I don't think that should be an instruction for any Democrats around the country, right? We don't need to watch them play this out. We need them to stand up for us right now. You're absolutely right. Democrats missed an opportunity to protect the residents of the District of Columbia from this onslaught by not granting them statehood. But we have to know that every day, every hour, that President Trump and his cronies have this increased authority over the lives and freedom of Black people in the District of Columbia. is a day and hour of danger that we must keep preventing. So we have to pour into our communities, but National Democrats need to stand up right now, right, and become the alternative, present the alternative, present democracy for the District of Columbia. It's going to be an uphill battle, and we've got iterations to this fight, but God damn it, somebody needs to stand up right now and say that this is not about public safety. It is a power play, and we need to resist that power play that Trump is having on an all-black city, because it will be somebody else's black city next.
And finally, to you, Kelly, you know, when we saw some of these ICE raids and people said, oh, you know, Latinos didn't care, many of them voted for Trump, and now they're finding out, and so on and so forth. Many of us here at the Black Star Network were saying, be careful, because once they start coming for one group, they're coming for everybody. What I'm noticing, Kelly, is that some of the people who are also going to be on these streets patrolling, in addition to the National Guard, are also going to be ICE agents. And so if you black, it seems like they could be, if they take you off those streets, or if they take somebody who's unhoused off those streets, you're not necessarily going to the DC jail. You might end up being deported to Rwanda or some of these other places. Can you talk a little bit about the moment that we're all about to find out how much this is problematic for all of us and not just one particular community?
Sure. I mean, I want to push back on that sentiment a little bit, in that just because we said this particular group is going to find out is not to say that we didn't know that we were also going to find out.
But I think some of us didn't think that we were going to find out. But I agree that many of us didn't feel that way. But for some of them are like, oh, we didn't know this was going to be us too. But go ahead.
Oh, see, it was an us issue from jump for me. Like, there was no separation. I was upset with the Latino community who voted for Trump because they thought they were othered from us.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Like, we are all minorities to racist white people. They truly don't see color. They just see black and white, which ironically are neutrals. They're not technically colored, right? But I digress. But when it comes to this situation and how we're about to find out in this situation, frankly, it is just disheartening. Now, especially in DC, voted against this, right? Like, if you look at the numbers of how the votes broke down in DC and the surrounding DMV area, we did not choose this. So this is truly oppressive for those of us who live here. I live in DC proper, and I am from DC proper. I did not vote for this. I did not choose this. My family did not vote for this. My family did not choose this. And still going to find out. And that is what's heartbreaking about this. The fact that we are merely just pawns. 34-time convicted felon. It is ridiculous.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. We're going to get some of the audio fixed as we get prepared to go to this break. But I wanted to thank you, Markus Batchelor, for joining us. And please keep us posted on what your organization is doing so that we can continue to amplify it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, Black Americans have 1/10 the wealth of their white counterparts. But how did we get here? It's a huge gap. Well, that's why we need to know the history and what we need to do to turn our income into wealth. Financial author and journalist Rodney Brooks joins us to tell us exactly what we need to do to achieve financial success.
You can't talk about why we are, as Black people, where we are, unless you talk about how we got here.
Bridging the Gap and Getting Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're talking about leveling up, or to put it another way, living your very best life. How to take a bold step forward that'll rock your world.
Leveling up is different for everybody. You know, I think we fall into this trap, which often gets us stuck because we're looking at someone else's level up journey, what leveling up means to them. For some, it might be a business venture. For some, it might be a relationship situation. But It's different for everybody.
It's all a part of a balanced life. That's next on Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. The United States is the most dangerous place for a woman to give birth among all industrialized nations on the planet. Think about that for a second. That's not all. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in this country during childbirth than white women.
These healthcare systems are inherently racist. There are a lot of white supremacist ideas and mythologies around Black women, Black women's bodies, even Black people, that we experience painless, right?
Activist, organizer, and fearless freedom fighter Monifa Akinwole Bandele from Moms Rising joins us and tells us this shocking phenomenon, like so much else, is rooted in unadulterated racism. And that's just one of her fights. Monifa Bandele on the next Black Table here on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
For a second straight week, over 50 Texas House Democrats remain out of state, blocking the GOP's quorum needed to advance a controversial mid-decade redistricting plan pushed by Governor Greg Abbott and urged by Trump to help Republicans hold on to power in next year's elections. Attorney General Ken Paxton is escalating legal threats and even probing who's funding the Democrats' stay away. But the Democrats are unfazed by their threats. Meanwhile, former El Paso Congressman Beto O'Rourke vows to keep raising money, standing firm with Democrats in this high-stakes standoff.
They're all bending the knee. And so this guy thinks, Donald Trump, that he's absolutely unstoppable. He really believes that he's the king that these knee benders tell him that he is. And so he comes to our state to grab even more power in the form of these 5 congressional districts, including Mark VC's right here. He thinks that we are going to take it right here, but he doesn't understand in Texas, our knees do not bend. That doesn't work here. We're going to fight these motherfuckers for as long as it takes with everything we've got. We're never giving in, we're never giving up, and we're never bending the knee. Are you with me? This guy and these Republicans are running scared. They're in full panic mode. That is why Greg Abbott is trying to remove these House Democrats from office. That's why he's threatening to charge them with second-degree felonies. That's why he's threatening to hunt them down with state troopers, now with Kash Patel, who was busy covering up for Donald Trump's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, now sending the FBI to go try to find these folks in Illinois or wherever they may be right now. But listen, I don't think he understands what he's up against here in Texas. Not only is it the folks who are here right now, not only is it those 54 brave Democrats who broke quorum to deny them the numbers to redraw these maps, but it is everyday Texans in every single part of the state. And perhaps the last place that they'd expect to see us coming is Tarrant County, Texas, right here in Fort Worth. Well, Donald Trump, here we are. You have met your match. And we're going to fight him each and every day with everything that we've got. Let's get off of the back foot onto the front foot, off of defense onto offense. Let's take this to every fucking county in the state of Texas, every state in the union, everywhere we have to go. Meet them on every front. Fight until...
This isn't the first time Texas Democrats have had to take a stand by breaking quorum. In 2021, more than 50 courageously stood their ground by leaving the state for D.C. to block a sweeping Republican election bill that threatened voting rights. They used a protest tool enshrined in the Texas Constitution, a minority's right to be heard when the majority shuts out public input. Chief Justice Blacklock confirmed quorum breaking is lawful and necessary to protect democracy. Yet Governor Abbott calls it, quote unquote, holding hostage, pushing to end one of the last remaining legal checks on his unchecked power.
Blacklock wrote, Article 3, Section 10 enables quorum breaking by a minority faction of the legislature.
Right. Yeah. Carefully chosen word. No. Carefully chosen word.
Enables.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the difference now? What do you hope they come out with?
The way the Constitution is constructed, it does enable them. He didn't use the word empowers them, okay? There's a huge difference between the two. The way that the Constitution is worded is because it allows them to escape. He didn't say, very importantly, he did not say, nor did the court say, that the writ that I have to the Supreme Court, which is quo warranto, they did not say that is disallowed to be able to be brought. So the issue that I'm bringing is an issue of first impression for this court, that the court did not decide at all, top side or bottom, in 2021.
It seems like your goal is to end the practice of quorum breaking once and for all.
We have to understand this consequence. If quorum breaking is allowed to succeed, then 1/3 of House Democrats would be able to dictate what the rule of law is for 100% of all Texans. They could break quorum anytime the budget came up. They could bankrupt the state by refusing to pass a budget unless their every leftist whim is capitulated to. As governor, I will not let that happen. And I believe the Supreme Court will agree that 1/3 of Democrats in the Texas House don't have the power to completely run the table of the state of Texas.
What is the role of the minority in the legislature then?
It's up to them to decide, but it's not quitting and leaving. Let's be clear about something. Quitting and leaving is the most un-Texan thing there is. Texas began at the Battle of the Alamo, where they didn't cut and run. They fought to their death to fight for what Texas was all about. These Democrats, they're the antithesis of what a Texan is. Oh, the going got tough. Let's not fight. Let's flee. These are quitters. They are cowards, and their cowardice will cause them to get kicked out of office.
You see this as your Alamo moment over redistricting?
This is continuation of ensuring that we are going to fight for Texas, and we're not going to be held hostage by a few leftist progressive Democrats who are trying to turn Texas into the blue states like what the Democrats have fled.
Talk about revisionist history. Wow. Well, we all know ending quorum breaking won't strengthen democracy in Texas. It will silence dissent and remove the last guardrail against authoritarian rule. And that's just simple. I want to return back to the panel on this. Also want to bring in Eugene Craig, CEO of X Factor Media Incorporated out of Baltimore. Eugene, we're in week 2 of this. How do you see this playing out? And also your thoughts on Governor Abbott's comments right there as well.
I mean, look, we're in a situation where these Texas Democrats are doing what they need to do. They're holding the line. And look, fighting looks differently in 2025 than it did in the 1800s, right? And what he has to understand is that, there wouldn't be a need for this if he wasn't trying to cheat and game the system for Donald Trump. And, so that's the thing, the Texas Democrats, they used a quorum break a couple years ago. This time around, they're much more prepared in a lot of different ways. And, national Democrats for helping them. Shout out to Governor Pritzker for giving them the resources they need to be able to fight this battle the way they want to fight it. And at this point, Governor Abbott, he needs to make a decision. Does he want to rig the game against Texans, or does he want to actually have an effective working government?
Absolutely. And Joy, I want to take this also out to the national level. One of the things I'm seeing as Ken Paxton is investigating Beto O'Rourke's organization, I am not, I'm not reading everything. I'm not seeing every news story, but I'm paying attention to it like the rest of us are. I'm not seeing a lot of these big celebrity, the Clooney types of the world, get rid of Biden, bring in Kamala, and then, it seems like after the election, they completely disappeared. Where's the financial support that's supposed to be happening for these Texas Democrats? Beto O'Rourke's organization seems the only one that's being targeted. I know that Bernie Sanders is having his, Stop the Oligarchy tour, but the money that's raised goes through his website. I don't know if any donations are happening. It seems to me that these Democrats who have fled Texas, with the exception of some governors who have embraced them, are kind of being abandoned nationally, financially.
I mean, I don't know if they're being abandoned financially. I have not looked into, how they're being funded. I know one thing is certain, they're not having their salaries paid. So wherever they are, they're doing so at great cost to themselves with respect to, these super Democrats, super delegate, these or super influential wealthy donors. I think there's a whole conversation we can have about their complete abandonment, not just of the Democratic Party, fine if you want to abandon them, but to abandon the people who are doing the work on the ground to hold off this administration. I mean, you at least ought to be supporting them so that we have a country to fight for, and then be supportive of the Democratic Party. And these Democrats, the Americans, have been crying out for people who are fighting. And these Texas Democrats are doing that. So, yeah, I mean, we need to see if you had your big mouth open last summer, we need your big mouth open this summer, and we need your big wallet opened. And it's not so much about paying their way, it's about drawing attention to what they're doing. And in reality, and also funding the organizations that will be there to defend them and to keep them going. That is really how, we need to be doing this. We need to be flooding the people who are supporting them. And let's be clear on what the plan is for these Texas Democrats. Their plan, they know that ultimately they're going to lose this battle. And then the fight will go to Democratic states who will try to do the same. But what these Democrats are doing is buying some time to raise awareness so that there can be a groundswell of people around them. And I do think they've been getting that kind of support. We need to see people on the ground marching in Texas. If you are a Caucasian person in Texas and you don't like it, don't do it behind your computer. We need you on the ground, on the streets, loudly, screaming, yelling, protesting, showing up at these people's homes peacefully and safely, but doing so, letting them know that you are watching what they are doing. That's what the Democrats are giving you time for, time to mobilize.
And Eugene, as they're mobilizing, we're seeing that, Cornyn is reaching out to the FBI to get assistance. And these Democrats are saying, you don't need the FBI to track us down. You know where we are. And this kind of plays into our last story about Washington, D.C. and Trump. How do you see this playing out as it relates to the FBI, the federal government getting involved at a deeper level? Because ultimately, all of this is to please Trump, who is the one who went to Abbott and said, I need 5 more seats. And do you feel like the Democratic response outside of Maryland has been sufficient, outside of Texas has been sufficient?
I think so. 2 things. The first is that Republicans, be such small government people, are always giddy at weaponizing law enforcement in these type of situations, right? The warrants that have been issued by the Texas House aren't criminal warrants. They're civil warrants that can only be enforced within the state lines of Texas. So it doesn't make any sense to try to get the FBI involved because those warrants are not valid anywhere but inside the state lines of Texas. Secondly, they know exactly where they are, so you don't need to even waste those resources. But one more time, hey, good luck getting them outside of the state of Illinois. Governor Pritzker has already made it clear he's going to use every resource possible to protect those Democrats, including from the abuses of law enforcement from their home state.
And Kelly, I'm a little bit concerned because I feel like I see people like Governor Newsom and other leaders talking about, well, if the Republicans are going to do this in Texas, then we're going to pull the trigger on this redistricting in our state. But while that's happening, other red states are actually looking at ways that they can do this as well in a way that may net them double-digit seats. And so some of us are saying, don't wait, Kathy Hochul, don't wait, Governor Newsom, don't wait, Governor Pritzker, and also calling out on people like Governor Moore to get in on the action as well. Don't wait for them to see what they're going to do. Do it now because they are going to figure out some other types of shenanigans to make sure they can control the House in 2026.
I can absolutely see that happening. My issue with the Democratic Party as a whole is that we are now very reactive, and then we play into the victimhood. That is what is happening to us, right? And it's really frustrating, and I keep saying that word, but it really is frustrating when you see what is happening. You have the time to plan, the time to act, and yet you don't, or at the very least, it appears that you don't. Because again, I'm not in the room where it happens all the time, right? So I can't say that nobody's working. But when you see this lull, this almost silence in media and outreach regarding what is happening and what to do next, the conclusion drawn from that, it is implied that you're not doing anything, right? So to your point, it is imperative that some type of proactivity needs to happen in order for, frankly, the base to be riled up and trusting in the party enough for something to happen. Because right now, at least from my point of view, the Democratic Party trust is eroding by the day because we have all this evidence and receipts, rather, of time and time again, things that we could have done, things that we could have said, things that we could have enacted, but didn't because we didn't want to seem like a bully, because we didn't want to seem like the oppressor, or we did just walking on eggshells within the own party in order to get something done because you want everybody to feel happy and euphoric. And that's not what politics is. And the Republicans know that, right? To this day, we don't have an answer for Project 2025, and it's 2025. And that happened. When did Project 2025 get written? Almost 5 to 10 years ago, and we still don't have an answer for that. So we are already behind the ball on strategy, and it feels like there's nothing we can do about it, but we can if people just do something something. I'll stop there.
No, absolutely. And that's what we're calling on. We're calling for everybody who has the power to do something, whether it's financially, whether it's politically, to absolutely do something, because this is the fight to end the progression of authoritarian rule in this country. And we're going to continue to stay on that on the Black Star Network to make sure that we're keeping you all informed. Other people may lose attention to this story, but we know how crucial this is. So we're glad that you're rolling with us every single day as we make sure we bring the latest news on this particular issue to you. We'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change, diaspora wars.
The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to blackness and black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this black sphere that we exist in.
Only on the other side of change on the Black Star Network.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're talking about leveling up, or to put it another way, living your very best life. How to take a bold step forward that'll rock your world.
Leveling up is different for everybody. I think we fall into this trap, which often gets us stuck because we're looking at someone else's level up journey, what leveling up means to them. For some, it might be a business venture. For some, it might be a relationship situation, but it's different for everybody.
It's all a part of A Balanced Life. That's next on Black Star Network.
Me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Candidate Zohran Mamdani is hitting the streets this week with his 5 Boroughs Against Trump tour, calling out what he says are the ways Donald Trump's agenda is hurting the city. He kicked things off Monday in Manhattan with support from prominent Democrats, including former Manhattan Borough President Ruth Messenger, citing cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and housing programs as proof that every New Yorker is feeling the impact. Mamdani says he's honored to have Messenger's endorsement.
My name is Ruth Messenger. Among other things, in the ancient past, shortly after the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I was privileged to be Manhattan Borough President and serve the public of this borough for 8 years. You know Manhattan, home and playground of the rich and the very rich, but also home to almost 2 million people who live in Washington Heights, East Harlem, Lower East Side, Hell's Kitchen, and many other wonderful neighborhoods. Yeah, that's right. People just like the people in Windsor Terrace and Stapleton and Bell Harbor and Fordham. All New Yorkers, all proud New Yorkers, doing everything they can to make it here and hoping that their city government will support them. I work today with many of our newest New Yorkers, men, women, and children who have come here in the last 24 months to escape oppression and pursue opportunity. And I do this work for many reasons, one of which is that my maternal grandfather was born here to a newly arrived immigrant family 140 years ago, and he became a public school principal and taught English to Yiddish-speaking parents of the children in his school. He and his pupils and their families built this city over the last century. If we work collaboratively and comprehensively with our community organizations and our houses of worship, we will help all of our New Yorkers, new and not so new, to get the education, healthcare, housing, and services they need, not just to survive, but to thrive and to continue to build New York City for all its neighborhoods and all its people. My great-grandson is starting public school next month, and I get to walk him to school every day. In New York, we do not need a mayor who conspires with the federal government to lock people out, to deport recent arrivals, to instill fear in everyone, as the Assemblyman said, or to deny services. We do not need a mayor who is secretly negotiating for support from a president whose budget will take healthcare and education funding away from the New Yorkers who need it most. Instead, we need a mayor who sees the city in its glorious complexity, who spends less time catering to the rich and more time making services available and affordable to those who are our future. We need a mayor who will promote affordability here and fight authoritarianism, which is threatening us from much too close by. It's for those reasons that I am proud to support Zohran Mamdani, who will be just such a mayor and will ensure the future of New York. Zohran will ensure the future of New York against those who espouse anti-immigrant sentiments and those who collaborate with the president bent on deporting new arrivals and cutting funding for city services. Zohran will be a mayor who invests in the services that everyone needs to continue to build this fantastic immigrant city for its future, for my children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. You don't have those yet, but who will be there for all of New Yorkers. And that's why I'm proud to endorse him for mayor.
The Democratic nominee is casting himself as the race's strongest anti-Trump voice, blasting rivals Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa as too cozy with the former president. He slammed Cuomo's recent phone call with Trump as disqualifying. New York's mayor's elections race is in November. And Joy, one of the things I have to be mindful of is that he has somebody who is a powerhouse, not only within New York there, but within the Jewish community as well, winning a mayoral primary in 1997. And, people have attacked him so much for being anti-Israel, and she's urging people to look past these past views. What do you see as the coalition that Mamdani is building, especially with a strong endorsement like that? And do you think that this could ultimately propel him going forward?
I think that Mr. Mamdani is going towards a win. I really do. I have not seen excitement about this person in a long time, a candidate in a long time. The fact of the matter is he has a joint coalition of people across demographic, across boroughs, that he's taken the time after the primary. He's sought to, politics is about addition, adding people who were not with him before or didn't know him before, adding them to his coalition. For the most part, this threat that Jewish people wouldn't support him has been a failed one. He has gathered Jewish support. He had some, and now he's gaining more as people actually hear him and they realize, he's not anti-Semitic, right? And also at a time where Israel is becoming less and less popular. This is also someone who seems focused on what the needs of New Yorkers are. People in New York City, in the boroughs, not talking about a bunch of national, issues. Donald Trump is a very present issue in New York, right? To be clear. right? For him, so Trump is local there. He's not talking about general things. He's talking about what impacts the citizens of New York City. And that kind of language is so important, and it's what's ought to be repeated everywhere. Not his message, because that's for New York, but focusing on what the people that elect you care about, and then focusing on those topics that bring the most people together. He has used this strategy effectively. And even where there are differences, he talks about the things that people have in common. He does not focus on what's divisive. He focuses on what unites us. This is a pattern we should repeat. And I think it's why we're going to see a successful outcome for him in the fall.
Now, Kelly, I hear what Joy's saying, but when we talk about building this coalition, I feel like somebody's missing, like a whole group of people is kind of missing. I haven't seen the Democratic Party come out and endorse Mamdani. And are they salty because the Democratic Socialists didn't endorse Kamala Harris? Are they concerned about backlash from various groups, the AIPACs of the world and the like? But I've seen people like Representative Jeffries and Schumer talk about we've met, we've talked, we've had good conversations and the like, but I'm not hearing any ringing endorsements. What's that about? And do you think that actually is going to change?
I mean, my first gut reaction to that is follow the money. Specifically, who has funded what for which campaign, and follow that trail. I think that would make the most sense to answer your question, because behind closed doors, it would not surprise me if everybody is behind Mamdani. The issue is who's going to say it with their chest out loud after those contributions have already been cleared. Those checks have been cleared, right? So that has been a consistent issue within the Democratic Party, having ties to PACs and private donors and the like that are almost the antithesis of what the party stands for. But because you need the money in order to maintain your seat, so long as we don't, look too close, it'll be okay. Well, Mamdani, to my knowledge, doesn't have any of those issues as far as financial, financial conflicts or, conflicts of interest financially. So what does that mean? It means that he's kind of the mirror to these people who felt like they had to do something. It's a reckoning, if you will. And it does not surprise me that we're not hearing from people in New York who, we know are from New York and we know are Democrat, right? So all I got to say is follow the money and you might get your answer.
So while we're talking about money, Eugene, I've seen some of the Democrats who have been hesitant to endorse him, like Senator Alyssa Slotkin, as an example. They would say things like, well, he's a Democratic socialist, and, I am a proud capitalist, and my family came up, and, they had no money, and then they built this. A lot of people share that story. Other New York Richie Torres, has said similar things. But when you look at the Democratic policies, Joe Biden, Harris, the Democratic Party now, so many of their policies are very much in line with what Mamdani is talking about. A lot of these things that became popularized when Jesse Jackson was running for office back in the day. Why does it seem that Democrats are afraid to embrace some of his policies when many of his policies are mirror images of what the Democrats have pushed forward for people across the country that Republicans have actually called socialists and communists, not even knowing what those fully mean in their words when they use it?
So I'm gonna qualify this with saying that I am a Republican that sometimes steps in the Democrat business. I'm only going to dip like a toe into this.
Step in it, jump in it, hop in.
I'm only going to dip like a toe into this. All right. So what I see here, outside looking in and somewhat inside looking in, is a situation that sometimes we deal with in the Republican Party, right? Where you have a group of individuals that may be active within the party, and then when you actually meet them, they're, oh, hey, Kamala should be doing this on Palestine, and we're going to sit out because she's not talking about the way we want her to talk about it, and da 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 da, right? And then guess what happens? Next year, your guy's now the nominee for particular office. And now you're sitting back, turning around, looking like, well, where's the party at to support us? When the party, last cycle was like, hey, we need every vote and everybody on board. And you guys gave the party the finger. So I'm not necessarily shocked, especially folk like Mandamni, who were very vocal during the last election about some of these things and some of the vote, sitting out and whatnot, not getting the institutional support from institutional Democrats that are now fighting the Trump administration tooth and nail every single day. Now, one more time, I'm a Republican that's only dipping my toe into this business. But, that's policy aside, but I think that's also something that's endemic when it comes to these Democrat socialists, right? We look at a Bernie Sanders who will talk about everything, but guess what? The big R word, race. He will talk about working class, won't talk about black and brown working class. This it's just what happens, and then then wonder why, hey, he can't win a Democrat primary outside of lily white states. But hey, I'm going to take a step back because I'm a Republican that sometimes steps in the Democrat business, and I'm only sticking a toe in it because I'm a guest here.
Can I jump in just to say this in defense of Democrats? Mom Donnie is relatively new on the scene, right? So many of them did not have a relationship with him prior. Doesn't mean he can't do the job. Doesn't mean he's not. He absolutely is. So I mean, the Democratic Party, some of the folks that you have named, people who are leaders in the party or whatnot, they don't typically get out in front. They follow where the people are. And while we have seen more Democrats rally around him, including, more conservative Democrats, moderates, et cetera, I believe Amy Klobuchar endorsed him or is supportive of him. The reason we're seeing that because the people are there. So stop waiting and looking for a Democratic leader to be the first to endorse, right? Be looking at the numbers of Democrats who are increasing their support of him. We have Jerry Nadler doing so. These are people who have been leaders in the party, right? Who are building support for him there, and they will continue to do so. Okay. But that is what always happens when you have someone who's new on the scene, because in the past, someone considers themselves a democratic socialist, they have actually not been able to get things done, right? Okay. So my colleague is right. So we love him, but he has to deliver. He has to deliver. And in the beginning, he didn't have black votes. He didn't have votes in lots of parts of New York City. And you need those votes to win. He didn't have some moderate votes. You need those votes to win. All the Democratic Socialists voting doesn't make a win. Okay?
I get
the rest of us, we have to wait and see.
I get you. So, Eugene, I know you talk about, dipping toes in, but I'm going to just push you in. I mean, like, many of us who don't roll Republican, one of our critiques of the Republican Party is that, or maybe it's not a critique, maybe it just is what it is that, Republicans fall in line and Democrats wait to fall in love. Given your view of the Democratic Party, whether you think Mamdani will win or not or anything like that, do you feel like this should be a Democrats need to fall in line type of moment, given that everything that, we're dealing with in the country, the anti-Trump agenda, he's on this anti-Trump tour right now. Do you feel like this should be a fall in line moment for the Democrats, similar to what Republicans do all of the time?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's a fall in line moment. I mean, my existence is, literally the antithesis of it, right? Myself and others, proudly, stood with Vice President Harris last cycle. I chair Black Republicans for Harris, was very active in Republicans for Harris. What I think the misunderstanding is that Republicans fall in line. Republicans, when I say fall in line, Republicans are beat into line. Matt Kibbe, who was the former CEO of FreedomWorks during his heyday, used to have a saying, right? To say that, hey, to the super activists, to say, hey, a lot of times we have to beat the Republicans before we can think about fighting the Democrats. And what you're seeing right now is literally a decade plus of more institutional, traditional Republicans getting beat into submission. The Freedom Caucus, laid the foundation for Donald Trump, who's now, essentially using the Freedom Caucus as this tools on the Hill. And you're seeing this agenda implemented as a fusion agenda of both of those entities. Um, that's not necessarily Republicans getting in line. That's them being beaten into submission. And what you saw with people that decided that they were going to stand up to Donald Trump, a la Mark Sanford, who, for a very long time was a political powerhouse within his own right?
Yeah.
Even, going through scandal and coming back, getting elected to the House of Representatives and, standing up for actual principle. Hey, they just said, look, we're going to primary you. But Republicans wouldn't necessarily get in line, but they are typically beaten to submission, one way or the other. Democrats, don't have much of an iron grip on their members as Republicans typically do. But that's also okay because, hey, members aren't elected to go serve party interests. They're elected to serve their members' interests. Their constituents' interests.
No, absolutely. You all bring up so many great points, and this is such a fascinating story that's continually unfolding in New York, and we're going to be keeping an eye on it to see what happens. We'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. The United States is the most dangerous place for a woman to give birth among all industrialized nations on the planet. Think about that for a second. That's not all. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in this country during childbirth than white women.
These healthcare systems are inherently racist. There are a lot of white supremacist ideas and mythologies around Black women's bodies, even Black people, that we experience painless, right?
Activist, organizer, and fearless freedom fighter Monifa Akinwole Bandele from Moms Rising joins us and tells us this shocking phenomenon, like so much else, is rooted in unadulterated racism. And that's just one of her fights. Monifa Bandele on the next Black Table here on the Black Star Network.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is facing backlash after sharing a CNN interview with Christian nationalist Douglas Wilson, a man who's argued women shouldn't be allowed to vote and has even downplayed the horrors of slavery. Hegseth, who attends a church tied to Wilson, reposted the interview on X with the phrase, "all of Christ for all of life." Wilson's vision is a country where only Christians can hold office, same-sex relationships are criminalized, and public expressions of other faiths are banned. Take a listen to what Wilson has to say about women.
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies? That's it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically. The wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with 3 or 4 or 5 eternal souls.
I'm here as a working journalist, and I'm a mom of 3.
Good for you.
Is that an issue for you?
No, it's not automatically an issue.
Josh and Amy Prince, along with their 4 kids, moved here from Washington State.
Do you see Amy as your equal?
Yes and no. In the sense that we're both saved by grace, we're absolutely on equal footing. But we have very different purposes, God-given.
But do you see yourself as the head of the household, as the man?
He is the head of our household. Yes, and I do submit to him.
So like moving here was ultimately your decision.
Yes.
That's a great
example.
Wilson says in his vision of a Christian society, women as individuals shouldn't be able to vote. His fellow pastors, Jared Longshore and Toby Sumter, agree.
In my ideal society, we would vote as households. And I would ordinarily be the one that would cast the vote, but I would cast the vote having discussed it with my household.
But what if there's your wife doesn't want to vote for the same person as you?
Right. Well, then that's a great opportunity for a good discussion.
There are some who have gone so far as to say that they want the 19th Amendment repealed.
I would support that. And I'd support it on the basis that the atomization that comes with our current system is not good for humans.
And Wilson, a veteran himself, is unapologetic about his view that women shouldn't be in certain leadership or combat roles.
Looking at the leadership page for Christ Church, it's all men. do you accept women in leadership roles in the church and in government?
In the church, no.
Why?
Because the Bible says not to.
Wilson is part of a broader Christian nationalist movement making inroads with the Trump administration, with a newly created faith office led by evangelical pastor Paula White Cain, and people seen right outside the White House entrance praying and speaking in tongues.
We are standing on the soil of the White House, and we are declaring your word.
How precious!
And now there's a monthly prayer service at the Pentagon, initiated by Hegseth, Wilson's highest level connection to the administration.
It's not organizationally tied to us, but it's the kind of thing we love to see.
For his part, Hegseth has publicly praised Wilson.
Now we're standing on the shoulders of a generation later, the Doug Wilsons and the others.
You know, one of the things I wish people could see is the reactions to those of us who are on the panels when we're showing these stories. And Kelly, I wish I had you on full blast for everybody to see.
No!
Just take it. Come on, give us what was going through your mind.
As someone who has grown up in the church, specifically a mega church that was conservative and predominantly white for many years, this just doesn't make sense. Biblically, there were women leaders in the Bible, for crying out loud, that we revere. You know what I'm saying? Like Deborah, both Marys, Esther, list goes on. And it's just, I am speechless right now, and I usually am not, but it just takes the cake for how insecure these men are. Because that's really what it boils down to. You don't want women to have power because you yourself don't think you are worthy of the power that you have. And in order to preserve the power that you have, you must quell any threat that you see fit. Even if that's your wife, or your mom, or your daughter. It is very weird to me that is a school of thought that men can just do what they want. I'm sorry, we hemorrhage once a month. Hemorrhage! And still get stuff done. You catch a cold and you're out for 5 weeks. And you think you are the stronger sex? You think you can get stuff done? Right? Like, presidents' wives have, on record, like in historical records, been the reason why this country has moved in the way that it does. And you think that it was just because of men? And this isn't a man-bashing post. That's not what I'm saying. But it takes 2 to tango on a lot of this stuff. And you thinking that only men can rule the world is the reason why the world is the way it is right now. And it sucks. So, like, that was bizarre to me. That's just bizarre.
Well, Joy, you know, of course, we can talk about this being bizarre, but it's also hypocrisy on full blast. So we have, this is a man, Hegseth, who came into the Defense Department, who originally said women shouldn't be in the military, and we've heard other views that he's espoused about women. I feel like even if this video, these interviews came out before his confirmation hearings, he still would have been approved because ultimately this is the view of Trump and so many of the evangelicals, even though Trump is the least devout Christian person. Obviously, he serves as their avatar, but is this not hypocrisy on full blast for a man who changed up to say that women should be in the military just so he can get approved?
Look, to be clear, this is not, it's bizarre to me. I don't understand this, but it's not bizarre in that no one believes this. There are a good number of people who believe this, and that's okay for them to believe it. That's their business, their religion. I'm not involved in that. What's the problem is when we put these people in positions of authority and power, and their thing isn't to just do it in their home. It's to then migrate it to our federal policy, our state policy, our local policy. Pete Hegseth, he can believe whatever wackadoo thing he wants to believe. But when he tries to put it on the military, as the case may be here, or in some other agency, that is where the issue lies. That is what we need to be talking about. And it is so important that we make sure folks know who's out there. And then we can say, look, we're not crazy. And if you are a white woman who is observing this, you know these people are out here because they're in your family. And some of us Black ladies, we know we got a few of them too in our family. It's not the majority of men. And so we don't want to overestimate that. But we do have to say this is what we're fighting against. This type of belief is encroaching itself into our policy, and that's what we have to ward off. Donald Trump isn't supportive of this, but he'll use it if it gives him a greater handle on power. He's not going to get everyone else, but he's looking to get white men and perhaps some other men who believe in this foolishness. They want to build their lives and their success off the backs of women, and they see our advancement as, you know, they're undermining. We know that's out here, and this is why we need white women to be more engaged. Most white women are not that woman that was standing next to her husband, and God bless her. She has every right to feel that way. But they should not be in positions where they make decisions for the rest of us.
And so, Eugene, I want to tie this into the last segment when we talked about Mamdani, because so many people have called him an anti-Semite because of his phrase, globalize the intifada, which he has not used again, has walked a little bit back. But so many people have used that and him saying that if he was mayor, he would arrest Netanyahu because of the international warrant for his arrest. He would enforce that law. And they're using that to call him an anti-Semite and a religious extremist. And we've seen people from all sides of the political aisle come out with various Islamophobic comments about Mamdani. But here we are seeing religious extremism going off of Joy's point within the government. This is the head of the Department of Defense who tweets out all of Christ for all of life. Someone said in the confirmation hearings that he wants to use the Defense Department as the flaming sword of Christ. This is a man who said that when he was out in the club one night, talked about killing all Muslims. Can you talk about the hypocrisy and how people will go after Mamdani for a comment he doesn't even use anymore and has no strong history of that we know of anti-Semitism with a man who is promoting religious extremism? He shared this interview on his actual feed. Can you speak to that hypocrisy? If you see it as hypocrisy as well?
Yeah, it's definitely hypocrisy. And the thing is this, right? Right-wing fundamental Christianity is more of a threat than probably any other religion in America. And because the issue is that, Christianity is always going to be the justification, right? Or further in those aims and those goals. The thing is, the bigger the issue is that the way that these people view the role of women is absolutely disgusting. To say that, hey, you want to eradicate the 19th Amendment and take away a woman's right to vote is absolutely disgusting. One of the underbelly fights that's rising up daily is that the fight between Republican men and Republican women, actually being led by MTG, on how Republican men handle Republican women and the lack of leadership roles and opportunities for Republican women. And I think that, look, all this ties in together. You're going to see going forward, especially with this Trump administration and their faux Christianity, right? And how they decide to interact with different faiths and whatnot. You're going to see more of this extremism. But the thing is this, you have the Secretary of Defense that had to promise that he wouldn't drink on the job because he has this huge drinking problem and other more failings. I wouldn't expect anything different than hypocrisy.
And can we also just say shame on Republican women, to my colleague's point, for not speaking out against it? No, Marsha Blackburn doesn't believe this. She's about to run for governor. Okay?
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Gandhi doesn't believe this. She's the equal of Secretary Hegseth. So the chief of staff of the president is a woman. The head of the faith office is a woman. But they have remained silent here.
Right, and I think that some people, I feel like many people, call this out and call out Republican women as they rightfully should. And one of the things people also talk about is that this shouldn't be platformed because it's promoting these, but we need to know what's going on. We need to be aware of the people who are influencing the people who are running our government, because it really is telling. And so even though people may talk about there's division, this man's church is on the rise, and people like Hegseth promoting him is only going to make them grow bigger. And so we need to make sure that we're calling attention to it. And we're always going to call attention to stories like this and the hypocrisy of this government and the hypocrisy of any of these officials out there claiming to represent the people. We are always going to do that every day right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, Black Americans have 1/10 the wealth of their white counterparts. But how did we get here? It's a huge gap. Well, that's why we need to know the history and what we need to do to turn our income into wealth. Financial author and journalist Rodney Brooks joins us to tell us exactly what we need to do to achieve financial success.
You can't talk about why we are, as Black people, where we are, unless you talk about how we got here.
Bridging the Gap and Getting Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The Department of Veterans Affairs has abruptly terminated union contracts for most of its 450,000-strong workforce, stripping hundreds of thousands of employees, nurses, technicians, food service workers, and more are losing collective bargaining protections they've had for years. The move comes after a March executive order from President Trump citing national security and a court ruling clearing the way. Effective immediately, staff unions like the American Federation of Government Employees and National Nurses United have lost their bargaining power. Joining us now is the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, National President Everett Kelly. Everett, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you.
So when we share stories like this, and we're talking, I'm sharing 400,000, I'm naming various professions, so many people who aren't aware of what's going on, this is just numbers to them. Can you talk about the real effects of what's happening with people on the ground from what you're seeing?
Okay, thank you so much. You know, for AFG, we represent 820,000 federal and DC government workers. And we are facing unprecedented attack, not by our choosing, but by the reckless attacks of this administration that is determined to silence federal workers and weaken our unions and dismantle the very structure that uphold public service and accountability, such as workers in the VA, okay? Now, when you start taking away the rights of workers in the VA, it's going to adversely affect the veterans that they service every day. You know, the protection of unions has been good for the VA. I would say that because you think about a workplace where an employee has to deal with an employer that screams and yell and holler at them all day and then expect them to be able to perform in an effective manner. It doesn't happen. And with a union, you know, you give that opportunity for an employee to be protected, you know, from those type of attacks. You know, just think in terms of a veteran that need help, right? But a person that has been scolded, a person that has been discriminated against, rather, you know, they have to contend with that. And therefore, when the veteran come in for service, you know, they might not get the very best care or very best service because of the trauma that is going on inside of that employee's head. But the union has protected employees from that days in and day on. And we will continue to do that. A lot of people think that the union is gone, but before we had a contract, we had a union. And we will have this union. It will stand here. It will fight for its members, you know, until there is no fight left.
And so what is the fight looking like right now? This executive order is something that came in March, and now they have this abrupt termination. What has the fight been looking like? And because we want to know what's going on out there and how we can support what you're doing. What kind of shape is the fight in right now?
Well, of course, we have been winning in the district courts, and then of course, the administration want to push everything to the Supreme Court. And as you know, that there was a state issued to the administration that said they can go ahead with their plans, but it still left us opportunity to litigate these issues. Now, we believe that we're on the side of right. We believe that what has occurred is illegal, and we still have an opportunity to present that case, before and in the legal system. And I believe that ultimately we will prevail.
Mr. Kelly, how are you seeing the support from the American people? Because to be quite honest, this is not a story that I am seeing on the mainstream news every single day, but my assumption is that so many people have union within their history that maybe these stories are getting to them. But is this a story that is not reaching the attention of the national audience as it should? Or is it reaching the national audience in ways that we're just not seeing?
But we've been seeing it really reach the national audience. Is it enough? I would submit to you that it's never enough. I would submit to you that we need more and more of people like you that will bring forth these issues. But we have been on major media outlets, explaining the story, because people don't understand really who federal employees is. They are characterized as being bureaucrats, as being lazy. But let me just tell you who these federal employees are.
Please.
They are the people that take care of our veterans. When our veterans go and fight in the wars and they come back and need services, it's these employees that service them. They are the people that make sure that the air that we breathe is good air. The food that we eat is good food. Make sure that the air that we fly in are safe to fly. These are the people that make sure that our students get a quality education, that are being called bureaucrats, that are called lazy, and are being, humiliated, by this administration.
I want to go to the panel for their questions. Eugene, your question for Mr. Everett Kelly.
Hey, so Mr. Kelly. Actually, I'm a former two-time VA employee, 2 summers. Okay, when I was 15 and 17. Worked in fee bases and risk management back a long time ago. I guess my question is, what can everyday Americans do to help this fight? Because at the end of the day, if the employees aren't being treated right, then the service to the actual veterans is going to not be where it needs to be. So what can because this administration and every administration, every elected, love to wrap themselves up in the flag of the veterans, right? And not like national flag, but love to put themselves in veteran care for veterans. So what can everyday Americans that are watching right now do to help protect the people that are essentially taking care of those that take care of us, protecting the rights?
Okay. Well, thank you for that question. There are several things that fellow Americans can do. Number one, we have rallies across the country, to bring light to what's happening. I ask fellow Americans to join in when they hear about these rallies. Join in. Participate. To show the administration that the American people are paying attention. Matter of fact, we're going to be doing one in Los Angeles this Friday coming. It's called the AFL-CIO bus tour. People can join in with that. Secondly, people can call their members of Congress and members in the Senate and tell them that they do not appreciate the fact that services that America deserve and need is being dismantled by this administration, and you expect them to stand up and do something about it. Now, we also have a bill in the House, and the Speaker refuses to bring it forth for a vote because we think we got enough to pass these votes that will restore the bargaining rights and the rights of federal workers. So there is a discharge petition right now, and I'm asking every fellow American, to make the phone call to their congressional personnel, regardless of what district you're in this United States of America, call and pressure them to ask, matter of fact, to sign on to the discharge petition so that they won't have a choice but to bring it forth for a vote. They're trying to hide the ball, but we need to bring it out. And it's going to take the American people to do that. And especially from the Republican Congress. Now, I'll just be quite honest. The Democrats have signed this petition. They're ready to bring it to the floor for a vote because they think that democracy is everybody's right. And I believe that democracy is everybody's right. I believe that every worker have a right to voice their concern in the workplace. As a veteran myself, I cannot imagine what's going to happen when they privatize all of these veteran services. Okay, I don't want to think that I can't pick up the phone and call the crisis line and get somebody to take care of my issues. If they privatize these services, guess what? You're going to be put on the hold list for 3 weeks, a month, 2 months before anybody contacts you. So that's a problem that we're going to have to deal with if these services are ultimately privatized, as this administration wants to do.
Kelly, your question.
Sure. So with Virginia being just one state over, and they are certainly the most impacted by this decision making, can you talk about specifically the hypocrisy of the decision making, being that this is concerning Veterans Affairs? The whole point of Veterans Affairs is to help veterans, and the fact that they are dismantling unions that have worked towards this common goal of helping veterans, how that is being dismantled, and any other intricacies of the hypocrisy that you see.
Well, and thank you for that question. That's why, I'm working to make sure we get another attorney general in the state of Virginia, because the present attorney general have not even spoke a word in defense of these workers that are being demoralized. Okay, we have to make sure that every community understands what's happening across America. Now, excuse me, but it's not just in the Veterans Administration. Although last week we received a notice from the administration that they were going to take away the rights of these employees to be a part of the union, but that didn't just happen in the VA. That happened also in EPA. And these are the people that make sure that we breathe freely. We can have clean water and those type of things. So it's an attack on all federal agencies, and the services that they provide are going to soon cease to be, or it's going to be privatized to a private company where the people that have actually contributed to these campaigns are being paid back through the services that should be provided by individuals that have no interest in these scenarios. So we have to continue to fight back, and we will. AFGE will continue to fight back. This is the other piece that we have to understand. Before there was a union contract, there was a union. And we're going to continue to be that union, and we'll fight until we get every contract back one by one.
Joy, your question.
Can you say to me and to the American people, anyone watching, exactly what the ending of this contract will do to their benefits if they have a family member, as do I?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. That is a very good question, because people don't think that when you start talking privatization, they don't think about what that really means. But when you start privatizing an agency, say if you just take the VA for example, these employees right now are under contract. They have great benefits, right? They have health insurance. They have rights on the job. They have a right to speak, on the job, against issues that are unsafe and those types of things. When you become a private contractor, guess what? The first thing that happens is your pay is reduced, okay? Because they're about making a profit rather than providing a service, okay? Not only your pay reduced, but also health benefits and all of the benefits that, the union, because you're a union worker, have worked hard to achieve. All of those things are out the door. So it's vitally important that union representation and unionism stay alive in America. It is the springboard that has caused us to be a part of the working class, but this administration won't those that have a lot, which is the rich billionaires and millionaires, and those that have nothing.
Mr. Everett Kelly, president of AFGE, thank you so much for joining us, and please keep us posted so we can continue to amplify what's going on at AFGE and unions overall. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
No doubt. We'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change, diaspora wars.
The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to blackness and black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this black sphere that we exist in.
Only on The Other Side of Change on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Frank.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Reverend Joseph Darby Jr., a faith leader and notable civil rights activist in South Carolina, has died. Darby's family confirmed he passed away on August 8th, just one day after his 74th birthday. The Darbys did not disclose a cause of death, but his loved ones did note that he had suffered from a long-term illness. Darby was a leader in civil rights in the state, being the first vice president of the Charleston branch of the NAACP and former first vice president of the South Carolina NAACP. His 48-year tenure as a faith leader included his role as a presiding elder of the Beaufort district of the AME Church. Before his death, he also served as pastor of Nichols Chapel AME in Charleston. Congressman Clyburn shared some words on Twitter regarding Darby's passing. I'm deeply saddened to learn of the passing of my good friend, Reverend Joseph Darby Jr. Clyburn continued by saying, Reverend Darby was an extraordinary and gifted man, a community leader, servant, and a faithful man of God. His career has been marked by selfless service to others that comes not only from his dedication to ministry, but his innate passion and compassion. And it seems, Kelly, that every single day we're losing more of our legends, some younger, some older, but it just seems like that when we lose the elders, the library is closed, especially at times right now when we need them the most.
I was just thinking about how, we are now of the age where we're seeing the changing of the guard, right? And with this activist and so many others, thankfully we do have some type of not codifying, but just some type of record of their existence and some type of path forward that we can read into and research and see what they did. So we're not losing recipes. You know what I mean? When it comes to these activists, and I couldn't think of another way to say it, but we're not losing the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. My concern moving forward is, we are getting older and we have things that we need to codify, so to speak, and we need to work on that for ourselves while we are still of sound mind and sound body, so that we don't leave the next generation hanging, because it's not that the struggle will be over, it'll just be a different struggle. And considering that history repeats itself, there will always be some type of nugget in everybody's story to make somebody else's story a little bit easier to walk.
And how do you see that, Eugene, when we talk about legacy, especially with the legacy of a man like Reverend Darby Jr.? It seems like as we lose more, as more people become ancestors, sometimes when this library is closed, and, Kelly talked about that recipe, if we don't really pay attention and read the stories and understand the stories of legacies like his, it seems like we can't get that guidance, even when they're gone.
Look, the thing is this, right? Legacies are built, and then they're built upon, and then they're built upon. Hove has a line, says, a midget on the shoulder of a giant can see much further than a giant. And so I guess, so the thing is this, right? It's our job to stand on the shoulders of these giants and, take things to that next level. These recipes aren't being lost. They're actually being passed down and then reworked and remixed and then reapplied to the field. And, that's the best thing that we can do for Reverend Darby and, those that came before and that will go after him, is to make sure that we're doing what we can to build upon the legacy that, they left us.
And Joy, when I think about his legacy, I also look at the way that he fought in the religious space and also in the social justice space in terms of the organization, being part of the NAACP, being part of AME. And it seems like nowadays that kind of connection, I don't know if it's being revived, but at least for a long time, it seems like people who represented what Reverend Darby Jr. represented, it seems like we kind of moved away from that space. How do you see it?
So I'm so glad that, we're bringing this back, because we just talked about a white male Christian nationalist version of religion. And in many respects, we've sort of ceded religion to these uber conservatives and these folks that we were talking about before with Pete Hegseth, or to the right of normal conservatism. They're off the cliff somewhere. But the truth is, I think that we shouldn't make fun of the role of religion in people's lives and how important it is. And I say that as a person who's not known for being particularly religious, but I understand how important it is in people's lives. I don't think it's wrong for folks to come together on the basis of faith. I just don't think it ought to make its way into policy where then you tell other people they can't have their own faith and their own beliefs, and everyone has to adhere to your views. But I think it's really important for us to say, if you are a religious leader, we need your voice in this moment. We need you to draw the connection with our history, with our modern times, with what the biblical text, what faith says about the moment we're in. People need that, about what it also says about what we have to do moving forward. The real lesson, too, of the pastor is that he did something. He had impact in people's lives. Mm-hmm. Too many of us, are not having tangible impact. And if anything, the Democratic Party, I think, got away from is that it stopped having tangible impact in people's lives. It became about complaining and not about doing and showing what you did.
Yeah.
And saying, you know what, we want results today. It's not enough to tell people it's going to take a long time. No, they got to see and feel what you are doing today. And they have to believe that you are people of your word. And so I think that that is something that these leaders who've gone before can teach us. People of their word, being honest about their faith, where they're coming from, what drives their work, and then actually being tactile, touching people, being on the street with them, having impact with them. When they don't know, saying they don't know, etc. We've gotten away from that, and it's to our peril. It's not enough to be on social media. It's not enough to just be having a good time. It's not even enough to be resting at this point. People need to feel you. They need to know you're standing with them. They need to know, they need to understand what you're doing for them and why supporting you is going to benefit them.
No, absolutely. And Reverend Darby Jr. represented that, and now he's an ancestor. And we just pray that he rests in peace and power forever. That's going to do it for us on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you so much, Kelly. And thank you, Eugene, for joining us. Please remember to support us on the Black Star Network. Please support us on all our social media platforms. Contribute to the Black Star Network so we can continue to grow this platform. Thanks to Roland Martin for letting a brother sit in the chair. I'm Dr. Ome Congo Dibinga. And you have to remember, y'all, it is now time for Truth Talks. I will see you next time. Holla.